In many ways, wrestling feuds should be started over anything and everything. I mean, in what other sport do you control why people are fighting? There aren't that many, so if you can manipulate that, why not go crazy and have grown adults fighting over who gets the last Haribo? I do that in my actual life, so it is relatable. That last f***ing egg is mine. Unfortunately, this envelope is pushed a little too far sometimes. We all want to believe in pro wrestling, so when a bunch of writers seem like they can't be bothered, it kind of makes you feel the same way. You just shrug your shoulders and accept it, but deep down you're dying inside. And dying inside makes children cry. I'm Simon from WhatCulture, and this is the 10 worst reasons wrestling feuds started. Number 10. Custody of a child. Way back in 2005, Rey Mysterio and Eddie Guerrero were feuding over who would take ownership of Rey's child Dominic. Let that sink in for a minute. Two of the greatest wrestlers ever battling over who should be a child's dad. Right? Okay. Excellent. To make matters worse, this all culminated in a ladder match where the prize above the ring was who would be able to claim this boy as their son. It was basically Judy Bagwell on a forklift levels of insanity, but because Eddie and Rey were so good, they managed to make it passable. It's still pretty distasteful though, and just nuts when you think about it. Imagine that's how real custody was divided up in the real world. Well done, Mr. Smith. You climbed the ladder first, so now little Billy is yours. We hope you have a great life together. Number 9. Ownership of the letter T. Although this sounds like an episode of Sesame Street, it is in fact WCW nonsense that went down during its dying days. That meant in the year 2000, Booker T and Ahmed Johnson, who was now known as Big T, went to war to see who deserved to use the letter T in their name. And you know this is dumb because we've already said T way too much. If you thought it couldn't get any worse, you'd be wrong, because Jay Biggs, who used to be Clarence Mason in the WWE, put out a lawsuit against Booker claiming that this magical T actually belonged to Big T because he was now a member of the reformed Harlem Heat, which used to include Booker T. I honestly have no idea how or why WCW went out of business. Yeah, right. Number 8. No party invitation. No one likes to realise they haven't been invited to a party. It makes you feel like a loser, and then you have to start dressing in black and start an emo metal band, and if you're not into that genre of music, well, that's a whole other kettle of fish. That doesn't mean pro wrestling should use such a diss as a reason to start a feud though. The WWE did, of course, because at this point the WWE is reaching the Simpsons level of storytelling in the sense they've done everything. And that's why in 2012, Ted DiBiase Jr. was throwing tailgate parties for everyone who wanted to have some fun, and why Hunico attacked him because they were never asked to tag along. And guess what? No one cared about any of this, because no one cared that Hunico wasn't invited to a fake party. It's what children argue over, not grown men. Ridiculous. Number 7. The death of a father. The Big Boss Man's crashing of the Big Show's father's funeral is a weird one. A lot of people look back at the feud fondly and actually think Ray Traylor did a great job in the role. But when you actually think about what's going on here, and that in reality Big Show's dad had actually died, I can't even finish that sentence. My mind just goes blank and I start to tune out. This was the duo's storyline in 1999, however, and the Big Show was heavyweight champ too. I mean, he was treated like one of those secondary champions, but that's not the point. This was the story the most important title belt in the company was involved with. The highlight, if you can call it that, is when the boss man actually stole Show's dad's coffin with the big man jumping on top of the casket to try and stop him driving off with it. That sounds more like a comedy sketch than an attempt at a serious dramatic narrative, but it happened. And you can never make it unhappen. Number 6. Not returning phone calls. Don't ignore me if I'm calling you. We can all understand that. If you're making the effort to try and speak to someone and they won't even bother to pick up, that is upsetting. What's wrong with you? Why don't you matter? Is this all life has cracked up to be? What you don't do, however, is then start a blood feud with someone because of it. That makes you a psycho. With that in mind, Kevin Nash is a psycho because in 2011 he returned to the WWE to stick it to CM Punk because he got a text message from Triple H, or so he said. What actually happened is that Big Sexy had used the game's phone to text himself, which is so bizarre, I'm just going to ignore it and move forward. Not that it gets any better, all of this led to serious tension between the two, with Diesel repeating that Triple H had stopped returning his calls and therefore they had to have a match at TLC 2011. Just get over it, Kev. Just get over it. Number 5. Stalking. Not the worst reason to start a feud, really. If someone is stalking your wife, as DDP was doing to The Undertaker in the early 2000s, you're gonna want to beat them up. That's fine, but do we really need this stuff in the world of pro wrestling? Or to saddle Diamond Dallas Page with a gimmick so damning he can never really get past it afterwards? Page did get a great reaction when he unveiled himself as the Masked Man, but what happened afterwards was a joke. Taker pummeled the former WCW champ as if he was a lowly jobber, and before long the WWE saw him as nothing more than that. He could talk the talk, sure, but when it came to walking the walk, people just thought he was going to fall over and break his teeth. Doesn't matter though, because these days DDP is the most positive man on the planet, and he's going into the Hall of Fame, so he wins. Number 4, coffee spilling. In late 2000, Chris Jericho spilled his coffee on Kane. Now, this is a bad idea because Kane is massive and, as we now know, crazy, so you don't want to do anything that's going to piss him off. But here's the thing. Firstly, Kane has a lot more to worry about than someone pouring a beverage on him. He's mentally ill, thinks he's covered in burns, and looks like a terrifying doll. In the grand scheme of things, having to get some laundry done isn't that bad. Now you may say, Simon, but therein lies the point. If he thinks he's been burned, then a coffee spill would send him loopy. Okay, fine, but this is still dumb, because the incident sparked a feud between the two and resulted in matches at Survivor Series and even a last man standing contest at Armageddon. And all the while you're sat there thinking, this is over caffeine. Not really something you can care about too much. Number 3, stealing clothes. A wrestler's gear is pretty important, mainly because without it, everyone would be naked. And that's a whole other side of the entertainment landscape I don't want to get into at this juncture. Maybe another time. You would assume this is why Bret Hart was pretty annoyed with Jean-Pierre Lafitte in 1995 because the man had stolen his pink shades and even his infamous leather jacket. The two started to feud, and somewhat surprisingly, the matches were pretty good, especially when they faced off at In Your House 3. But that doesn't change the fact that we're talking about someone stealing a coat here. Not going to headline WrestleMania, is it? It just feels and sounds so lazy. Then again, that was kind of the WWE's MO in the mid-90s. Number 2, stealing toys. Just when you think it couldn't get any worse, clothes are replaced with toys, and in this case, it was an action figure no less. So we're right into child territory here. Wrestlers getting mad because their plastic dude got stolen. The whole thing was really weird as well. Going down in 2011, Tyson Kidd just happened to stumble across Yoshi Tatsu's shrine to himself, complete with a Yoshi Tatsu figure. Yoshi cared so much about this that he stopped Tyson from even touching it, and then tried to feed this inanimate object some chocolate. I'm not making that up either, and you didn't mishear. That's actually what happened. Clearly not being able to handle such a blocking, Kidd returned later and broke the figurine and stole one of its legs. So, of course, now the two had to have a fight, and of course, the leg of the doll had to be hanged on a pole during a match. Why do we watch this again? I seem to have forgotten. Number 1, the shampoo commercial. This one is so out of left field and weird, I don't even understand why it was discussed in the first place. Who backstage thought this up, and who then had a eureka moment where they thought, this is a good idea? Now, to defend it a little bit, the whole thing was played for laughs, but that just made it even more stupid. Edge and Booker T, two proper main event talents, fighting it out over who gets to be in a fake Japanese shampoo commercial. Clearly no one thought it was dumb, however, as the payoff happened at WrestleMania 18, aka the biggest night in the wrestling calendar. I'm all for variety, but this missed the mark completely. You'll be pleased to know that Edge won though, and received all that made up lucrative cash, which is a damn good reason to get behind the man and hope he succeeds in wrestling. It's all I look for in the sport. Sleek, smooth, and lovely hair. Know of any other awful reasons wrestling feuds started? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. You can even come follow me on Twitter at SimonMiller316. I'm Simon from WhatCulture, and when I have my first wrestling feud, it's gonna be over the fact somebody left a coffee stain on my table.